The moment he realizes losing you was his biggest mistake doesn't come softly. It doesn't arrive as a fleeting thought or a minor inconvenience. No, it crashes down on him like a tidal wave. Unexpected, overwhelming, and impossible to ignore. It's the kind of realization that takes his breath away, leaves him staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m., replaying every memory, every conversation, every moment when he could have chosen differently. It's a gut-wrenching, heart-pounding wake-up call that comes far too late. At first, he brushes it off. He tells himself he made the right choice, that maybe this was for the best. He distracts himself with work, with friends, with meaningless interactions that temporarily fill the void you left behind. He scrolls through social media, avoiding your page at first, but curiosity gets the best of him. He sees you smiling, thriving, living life without him, and something inside him twists. That's when the first crack appears. That's when he realizes this isn't what he thought it would be. Time passes, and instead of healing, the weight of his decision starts to settle in. He remembers the little things, the way you laughed at his jokes, the way you supported him even when he didn't deserve it, the way your eyes lit up when you talked about your dreams. He remembers the late-night conversations, the inside jokes, the effortless comfort of being with someone who truly cared. And then, suddenly, he realizes those moments weren't ordinary. They weren't replaceable. They weren't things he could just find again with someone else. Regret begins to gnaw at him. He replays the arguments, the times he dismissed your feelings, the times he chose pride over effort. He wonders why he didn't listen when you tried to communicate, why he didn't appreciate you when he had the chance. He starts to see the pattern. How you were always the one who gave more, who compromised, who held things together when he was too distracted or careless to notice. And now, with painful clarity, he understands that love like yours doesn't come around every day. He starts looking for you in places you'll never be. In the people he meets, in the conversations he has, in the laughter that doesn't quite sound the same. He searches for the familiarity of your presence, but nothing quite fits. The connections feel shallow. The newness of it all feels empty, because the truth is, what you gave him wasn't just companionship. It was depth, understanding, and unconditional support. It was something he didn't even know he needed until it was gone. He wonders if it's too late. If he were to call, would you pick up? If he showed up at your door, would you listen? He replays what he would say, how he would apologize, how he would promise to do better. But deep down, there's a fear that keeps him frozen. Because there's a chance you've already moved on. There's a chance you've realized that you deserved better, that you no longer want what he once had to offer. And that is his greatest punishment. Because when someone realizes they lost the best thing that ever happened to them, they have to live with that knowledge. They have to wake up every day knowing they had something extraordinary and they let it slip away. They have to watch from a distance as you thrive, as you grow into an even stronger, more confident version of yourself, one who no longer waits for their validation or approval. And that's when the weight of his mistake fully sets in. Not just because he lost you, but because he finally understands that he was never supposed to lose you. He was supposed to cherish you, to fight for you, to recognize your worth before you had to remind him. And now, all he can do is sit with the realization that he had something rare, something irreplaceable, and he let it go. People don't always value what they have when they have it. It's human nature to get comfortable, to assume that what's good will always be there, to take for granted the love and energy someone gives so freely. And that's exactly what happened. He thought you would always be there. He thought he had time. He thought no matter how little effort he put in, no matter how many times he dismissed your feelings, you would stay. At first he didn't notice the slow unraveling. Maybe he ignored the way your eyes lost their sparkle when you looked at him. Maybe he overlooked the way your laughter became less frequent, how your conversations became shorter, how the warmth you once gave so effortlessly started to cool. He told himself it was just a phase, that you weren't really going anywhere, because in his mind, you were a constant, solid, dependable, always available. But love doesn't work like that. Love is not something to be assumed or expected. It is something to be nurtured, cherished, and reciprocated. Love requires presence. And while he was busy being complacent, you were growing tired. Tired of feeling unseen. Tired of giving and receiving little in return. Tired of waiting for him to wake up and realize that love isn't about convenience. It's about commitment. Then one day you made a decision. Maybe it wasn't a loud decision. Maybe you didn't storm out or slam doors or give grand speeches about why you were leaving. Maybe it was quiet. Maybe it was just a slow withdrawal, an emotional detachment, a realization that you deserved more. And when you finally walked away, you did so with the knowledge that you had done everything you could. You had tried. You had fought for the relationship long after he stopped fighting for you. But at some point, you had to choose yourself. And that's when everything changed. Because the moment you were no longer there, the absence was undeniable. He expected to feel relief, or maybe even indifference. Instead, there was a hollow space where you used to be, a silence that stretched through his days, an emptiness that couldn't be ignored. And as time passed, that emptiness grew heavier. Because the truth is, when someone has been the light in your life, you can't just flip a switch and pretend you don't notice when that light is gone. He started to realize all the things he never paid attention to before. The way you remembered the little details about his life. The way you supported him in ways he never acknowledged. The way your presence made everything feel easier. He started to understand that the love you gave wasn't ordinary, it was rare. It was deep. It was something people search for and never find. And that's when the regret set in. The deep, aching regret of knowing he had something valuable, something irreplaceable, and he let it slip away. He looked back and saw all the moments he could have done better, all the times he could have chosen to listen instead of dismiss, to appreciate instead of assume, to hold on instead of let go. But now all he could do was watch from a distance as you moved forward, as you became stronger, as you flourished without him. He thought you would always be there. But love doesn't wait for people who take it for granted. Love doesn't stay where it isn't valued. And now he understands, sometimes the biggest mistake isn't just losing someone, it's realizing too late that you never should have lost them in the first place. Walking away wasn't easy. It never is when you've poured your heart into something, when you've given pieces of yourself in the hope that someone will see your worth and cherish you the way you deserve. But after all the waiting, all the second chances, all the silent hopes that he would wake up and realize what he had in you, you finally saw the truth. You weren't losing him. He was losing you. At first, it might have felt like a loss. The habit of him, the memories, the way your heart had once clung to the idea of what could have been. But then something shifted. The more distance you put between yourself and the version of you that begged for his love, the clearer everything became. You started to remember who you were before the disappointment, before the endless cycle of giving more than you received. You started to recognize your own value, not through his eyes, not through his validation, but through your own reflection. You began to heal. And healing didn't come all at once. It came in quiet moments. The first time you laughed without thinking of him. The first night you slept peacefully without wondering if he missed you. The first day you realized you hadn't checked your phone, hoping for a message that never came. It came in the realization that love is not supposed to feel like waiting. It's not supposed to feel like uncertainty. It's not supposed to feel like convincing someone to choose you. With every step forward, you reclaimed your power. The things you used to tolerate no longer held space in your life. The standards you once lowered for him became non-negotiable. You started focusing on yourself, on your happiness, your growth, your dreams. And in doing so, you unlocked a version of yourself that no longer sought validation from someone who never truly saw your worth. And that's when he noticed. Because the irony is, people don't appreciate what they have until it's gone. He started to realize it in the small, unexpected ways. Maybe it was in the moments he reached for his phone to tell you something, only to remember you weren't there anymore. Maybe it was in the loneliness that settled into his days, in the absence of the one person who had always been his safe space. Maybe it was in the way he saw you, not broken, not waiting, not hoping, but thriving, living, smiling in a way that no longer had anything to do with him, and that's when he truly understood what he had lost. He lost the person who would have stood by him through anything, the person who celebrated his victories, who supported him in his darkest moments, who loved him even when he didn't deserve it. He lost the kind of love that doesn't come around twice. And now he has to sit with that realization. He has to watch from the sidelines as you become everything he once took for granted. He has to live with the knowledge that you are no longer his to come back to, no longer waiting for his change, no longer willing to shrink yourself to fit into a space that never fully embraced you. But you are free. Free from the weight of waiting, free from the pain of being unseen, free to step into a life where love is given freely, not as an afterthought, not as an obligation, but as a choice made with certainty and care. And the best part is that you didn't lose him. He lost you. And that will always be his greatest regret. The power of self-growth emerges most profoundly in the aftermath of heartbreak. When the walls of a familiar relationship crumble and the silence replaces the echoes of shared moments, you are left standing in the debris of what was. But in that wreckage lies the fertile ground for transformation. A chance to rebuild, not as who you were when you were with him, but as someone stronger, wiser, and fiercely independent. It starts subtly, almost imperceptibly. At first, it feels like you're just surviving. You go through the motions, waking up each day, carrying the weight of memories that cling like shadows. But survival gradually turns into resilience. Every tear shed, every night spent questioning your worth, every moment replayed in your mind, all become the fuel for your growth. Slowly, you begin to understand that the ending of this chapter was not a reflection of your inadequacy, but rather a redirection toward your self-worth. You discover new parts of yourself in the spaces he once occupied. Maybe you pick up that hobby you always put aside, or perhaps you reconnect with friends you lost touch with while trying to hold on to someone who was never truly yours. You find solace in your own company, strength in your solitude, and beauty in the rediscovery of your independence. The world starts to look different when you are no longer anchored by the weight of unreciprocated love. Colors seem brighter, possibilities endless. You realize that your identity is not tied to being his partner, but to being unapologetically yourself. The dreams you once deferred for his convenience become your priority. The plans you adjusted to fit into his life now become the blueprint for your future. And as you grow, the narrative changes. No longer are you the one who was left behind or forgotten. You are the one who rose from the ashes, who transformed pain into purpose, who found a deeper, more authentic version of yourself. You are no longer waiting for someone to recognize your value. You live it, breathe it, embody it in everything you do. It's in this growth that you attract new energy, people who see your light, who appreciate your depth, who value your presence without condition. You start to build connections based on mutual respect, shared values, and genuine care. The love you begin to experience is no longer tinged with doubt or insecurity, but is rooted in trust, understanding, and reciprocity. And while you're blossoming, he remains trapped in the realization of his mistake. He starts to see that the love you offered was not ordinary. It was a love that healed, uplifted, and empowered. He begins to comprehend that his inability to recognize your worth was not a reflection of you, but a shortcoming in himself, a limitation in his capacity to value something extraordinary. But your story is no longer entwined with his regret. His journey is his own to navigate, filled with what-ifs and could-have-beens. Your journey, however, is one of forward motion, embracing new opportunities, and stepping into your greatness without apology or hesitation. In time, the memory of him fades, not because it wasn't significant, but because it becomes a stepping stone in your journey, a chapter that led you to this moment of self-realization. You no longer harbor resentment or anger. Instead, you carry a quiet gratitude for the lessons learned and the strength gained. Your best is yet to come. Each day you move further from the person you were when you loved him and closer to the person you are destined to become. And when you look back, it's not with longing but with pride, knowing that you survived, that you flourished, that you transformed. In losing you, he faced his greatest regret, but in losing him, you found your greatest strength. And that is the true victory, the realization that your worth was never dependent on his recognition, but always rooted in your own unwavering belief in yourself. The best is yet to come. That's not just a hopeful phrase, it's a fact. Right now, you may not fully see it, but every step forward is leading you towards something greater than what you left behind. Life doesn't take from you without offering something better in return. When you walk away from what no longer serves you, you create space for something more. More love, more joy, more fulfillment. At first, the pain of leaving might have felt like an ending. It's easy to get caught up in what was lost, in the memories of what once made you happy. But the truth is, that version of happiness was never meant to last. It wasn't built on a foundation strong enough to withstand the test of time. Real love, healthy, powerful, unwavering love, doesn't make you question your worth. It doesn't make you feel unseen or unheard. It doesn't make you beg for the bare minimum. And the moment you walked away, you set the stage for something extraordinary. The beauty of moving forward is that you are no longer confined by the limits of that past relationship. You get to rewrite the story, to create a life that reflects your true worth. You are no longer waiting for someone to change, to see you, to love you the way you deserve. You are stepping into a world where you are the priority, where your needs and dreams take center stage. And here's the thing. Life rewards those who choose themselves. The moment you decided to stop settling, you sent a message to the universe that you are ready for more. And that more is coming. It's coming in ways you can't yet predict, in opportunities you never saw coming, in love that will find you when you least expect it. Think about all the possibilities that exist beyond the limits of that old relationship. Think about the adventures you can take, the people you will meet, the experiences that will shape you into the person you are meant to become. Every single day is a new chance to embrace that journey, to walk confidently into a future that is no longer defined by who didn't appreciate you, but by what you now demand for yourself. And while you're moving forward, he is stuck. He is stuck in the realization of what he lost, in the regret that will follow him for years to come. He will search for you in others, but he will never find the same kind of love you gave so freely, And that's because you were never just an option. You were the prize, but your life isn't about his regret. It's about your rebirth, your transformation, your elevation. One day you will look back and smile. Not because you miss what was, but because you will see how much stronger, wiser, and happier you've become. You will see how the pain shaped you into someone unstoppable. You will realize that losing him was never a loss at all. It was a necessary step toward finding yourself. And when real love finds you, the kind that doesn't require you to shrink, to prove, to plead, you will understand why it never worked out before. You will see that everything you thought was the best was only a stepping stone toward something far greater. So keep going, keep growing, keep believing that the best is ahead of you, because it is. The love, the joy, the peace, the success, it's all coming. And when it does, you won't even think twice about the past. You'll be too busy living the life you were always meant for.